Hey everybody, it's me, Dave again, and that is, who are you?
I'm Beth Tigan.
All right. Beth is the Office Manager in Communication Studies, and this video is going to be about conducting interviews. So let's say that I am doing an interview with Beth. I'm making an audio documentary project on Beth and her job and the sounds of her job and why her job matters. Well, one of the things that I'm going to do is do a 20 or 30-minute interview with Beth. And good news for everybody, this won't be real time. But I want to show you the steps and things that we will be doing. Now, the first thing that's talked about is finding a quiet place. And all I'll say is that we have moved into my office, which is relatively quiet. I can't interview Beth in her office because there's people everywhere and the recorder will pick everything up. So let's assume that we have our place. The next thing that we need to do is get some sort of an arrangement set up where it's going to be easy for me to have the microphone next to Beth. And so we have this here. We're going to sit down, but you will have to arrange chairs in people's homes. You'll have to do lots of different things or in a location and so forth. But you will somehow get quite close to the person with the microphone. I usually make a little joke about this because, as you know, everyone, I'm very funny. Okay, but you are close. And there's the joke. Okay, so we've selected a quiet, comfortable setting. And I might say something along the lines of, you know, Beth, if it's all right with you, which you demonstrate that is, I've got about 15 questions or so that I'd like to ask you. It'll probably take around a half an hour or so.
Okay.
And I am going to record and hold the recorder quite close to you, but the goal is really just for this to be a conversation, and for you to share some observations about your job and your life and whatever you're comfortable sharing. Okay, great. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure my equipment is on. And the first thing, once you're here, let me find my notes, which I've lost. The first thing I want to do is get an adequate position. And the microphone should be held quite close to the person's face. Really, 5-6 inches from the person's face. The further away it is, the worse your sound is. You're going to get all kinds of sound that you don't want. You really want this person's voice. I'm going to hit record. I'm going to hit record twice. All right? Now, Beth, just to make sure that my sound level is okay, I'm just going to ask you a silly question.
Okay.
And this is what you do, by the way. You want to check your sound levels. You want the person at -6.
They're working on an activity.
And by the way, that's great because you hear how loud it is in the background. That would not be good. Okay. But Beth, can you tell me what you had for breakfast this morning?
Peanut butter and jelly.
So Beth is telling me what she had, peanut butter and jelly, and I might say, hey, you know, if you don't mind, could you just say the first 10, 15 letters of the alphabet?
A, B, C, D, E.
Great,
After
perfect, thank you. And so what I'm doing, and if it's too loud, I might turn down my recording level a little bit. But for now, I'm just going to deal with this by holding the microphone slightly further away from Beth. And my recording level of 80 is going to work. Okay? Now, and Kristen might be able to do this with the camera. Notice some tricks that I do. First of all, the microphone has to be about here. Second of all, you never ever let the person hold on to the microphone. Once you try to grab the mic, and then you can just say something like, if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and hold on to the microphone. It just lets me get a little bit better sound. When a person holds on to the microphone, it's a disaster. They make all kinds of noise. They move it around. They do all of these things. So we'll talk in class about your typed up interview questions, but I have my interview schedule right here. Don't look too closely because they're really not for Beth. And what I always do is I try to have my interview questions, I know them a little bit, and I have them off to the side, and they're there. Notice I haven't hit stop. Big deal. You don't need to hit stop on your tracks. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. If you don't mind, could you go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about your connection to Minnesota State Mankato?
Okay, my name is Beth Tigan. I am the Office Coordinator at Communication Studies Department at Minnesota State. I have been working here for almost 10 years. I worked in financial aid previously, and I graduate in May with my master's degree.
Great. And then, just if you could, just tell me a little bit about where you're from and your background. You don't have to answer too much, but I mean, that was great.
Yeah. I live in Lake Crystal. I've lived in Mankato before that. Haven't really ever traveled farther north in the cities. I stick pretty close to home.
Great. And then, what do you think about that Kristen Trinan?
She is my absolute favorite faculty here in communication studies.
Now, we'll talk a little bit more in class about follow-up questions and things like that. Kristen Trinan is doing the camera work. That's the joke. But I really wanted you to pay attention. You have to get sat down in front of somebody. The joke with the recorder is to get close and then get closer. So it always has to be pretty close. You don't want to be way out here. It's just too far away. You're going to get a lot of bad sounds there. And then a couple of questions or a couple other things here. First of all, I encourage you just to keep recording. You know, people often try to stop and start all the time, and then you make mistakes. Just keep the recorder going. And if you want to make a stop, let's say you've been talking for 10 minutes and you're new, you can just say, Beth, thank you, that's been great, and we've got some more questions, but if you don't mind, I'm just going to hit stop and make sure that what I'm recording is working. And then I test. Okay, great, it's all working fine. So I'm going to hit record again. Remember, it's got to be a solid light, and I could go back to asking questions. Just a couple more things before we sneak out of this one. You always have headphones on, of course, and oh shoot, I lost my notes there. Oh, well, this is important. Don't do this. So, Beth, what does it feel like when you come to work in the morning? Seriously.
Relaxing, honestly. I would say when I come to work, it's relaxing for the first half hour because I'm here by myself. Then after that, it starts to pick up and gets a little hectic. Do you see what I'm doing there? I'm giving verbal feedback. We do that a lot as a listener. We give verbal feedback. That is in the recording, and it is ruining the recording. You don't want some random person going so you're ruining the recording. The other thing, and I think this is about it, the last piece of advice I will give you is you don't have to feel like you have to move the microphone to you and then back to the person. To you and back. Don't do that. Hold the microphone over here and just ask your questions. If your questions will be recorded on the microphone anyway, and if we ever want your questions to be more clear, we'll just make a separate recording. And notice the loud noises behind us. This is not the best place, okay? But we can live with it, and it certainly works okay for this, and it's a good example. So I think that's it. Oh, well, there are two other things. Haha. Two last things. The good final question, we'll talk about this in class, is always, is there anything else that you'd like to add? Is there anything else that you would like to add? That's often when you get your best recording. Even though you've asked all these great questions, people are warmed up by then, and anything else you'd like to add. The last thing, I'll be honest, I forget to do it, but it is important for editing, and we'll talk about why. But as you should say after the whole interview is done, you should say, if you don't mind, I just have to get a little bit of this room sound, and I'm just going to record about a minute of room sound just quietly. And you literally hold the microphone and record a new track for 1 minute or so. And that's because every room has a unique sound, and we might use that sound later in the editing process, which we will talk about. I think that ran a little bit long, but I hope that gives you the details that you need for doing an interview. An interview is a conversation. It's also a chance to really, truly listen. And frankly, the recorder, well, it seems odd at first, just goes away, and you're going to have fun, interesting conversations with people. Thanks, everybody.